Good morning, listeners. Welcome to another exciting episode of SOS, which is Standards of Safety. In this podcast, as you know, we explore the world of safety. We're going to bring you insights from industry experts. I'm your host, Corey, and as always, I'm joined by Dave. Dave, how was your exceptionally long week this week? It was a long one for me.
It wasn't for me. It wasn't too bad. I mean, I took a couple classes this week, and that was an experience.
Yeah, some of
But
that ongoing education.
that ongoing education, yeah. But no, it was good. Got a lot of stuff done. Um, so yeah, I'm excited to do another episode. Talk some safety. Talk to some very knowledgeable people. And speaking of which, we have a very special guest uh, on this episode. We're thrilled to have her. Uh, she's an entrepreneur, uh, st- uh, runs her own company, travels a lot, and we're just real excited that she could. And, and speaking of traveling, I mean, she's on the road now, and we're very happy and very blessed that she's taken some time out so she could talk to us and uh, give us some insight on what she does and how she's got to where she is now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A complete trailblazer in the field of industry, right? And the pleasure our listeners you get to listen to today is Miss Patti. She has 25 years of experience in safety. One, owning her own company, safety consulting company. Two, she's also becoming a rising star in the e-learning industry. So you're going to get a lot of information about her online training. And she's going to bring a wealth of knowledge and expertise to our conversation. True entrepreneurial spirit and the dedication that she has is truly commendable. So I'm very excited for our show today. And let's go ahead and welcome Miss Patti. How are you today?
Wow, well, that introduction was stellar. I hope I can live up to the standard you've set. I'm feeling a little small now, but
No, no
my head
pressure, no pressure.
I'm on. Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to doing this and happy to share whatever I can with your listeners. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Awesome. So, we're thrilled to have you. So, I want to dive right into it. As a woman in the construction industry, you've obviously broken barriers with the intro that we just gave our listeners, right? You've been very successful in this field. So, and made some serious, significant strides in the industry as well. Could you know, fill us in on some of your struggles, the journey and challenges that you faced along the way?
Yeah, I think that so I am not a young woman, despite how I may look 29, but I did not start out in safety on purpose. It was not my goal. I attended Cornell University and I graduated with a science degree and found myself in the hazardous waste business. I had a science degree. At that time, hazardous waste business was growing like crazy, and I had a science degree and a pulse, and it didn't hurt I was a woman at that time. And I was the only woman working on a 43-person Superfund site in Philly. And if I tell you it was 1990. When we look at the challenges, I have to say, I don't know if it was simply the way I was raised. I was raised with blue collar men in my life with very sharp senses of humor. And so by the time I was entering that industry, I had a fairly thick skin and I felt very comfortable around men because it was mostly men. And I found that the challenges were practical ones. The PPE didn't fit. And, I'm still discouraged today as far as, women have come so far in the construction industry, but we still can't find PPE fits, which is criminal in my
Right.
opinion. But beyond that sort of practical thing, or finding out that I was making less money than someone who was less qualified in my own field and he was a man, that that was a challenge. But beyond that, I think that if you are curious about people, and I was always super duper curious about people and what made them tick, it was sort of like falling off a log, safety fit. And I was always a straight shooter, which I think anybody that you work with appreciates. And so it felt good. I was curious about people. I wanted to make sure they were safe. I was happy to ask a lot of dumb questions to find
Yeah.
out about what the safety challenges were in their job. And then really my role was just to make their job safer. And we were on the same page. So when it comes to the challenges, they were practical ones. I have never ever considered being a woman having been any disadvantage in my career, and it is only when I get asked that question that I actually ponder what that meant.
Interesting. Very interesting. So, quick question, Dave, if you don't mind. You're talking about you grew up with some blue collar sense of humor. So, you developed a sense of wit at a young age and knew how to fire off remarks and stuff in that back in the 90s for sure, huh?
Absolutely. And it was a matter of survival with my family. You were going to be sharp-witted or have thick skin, and you ended up having both. And the joke in my family was I could have gone into safety or I could have gone up into stand-up comedy, and I chose safety. And
I love
but
it.
if people are, that was when they discovered at that hazardous waste site that I was unafraid to speak in front of a group of people, that like doors opened. And I found that the best way to engage the guys standing around at a toolbox talk was to have a joke or pick on one of them in a good-hearted way,
Yeah.
and that kept them engaged. And if they were looking at me and laughing, I knew they were awake and they were taking it in. And then when I circled back around to the serious message, they knew it was serious.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a difference between the ribbing and then it would be, hey, listen, guys, no kidding around. We need you to do this, and because I don't ever want to lose one of you guys on the project. And that's how we married those two things together.
Well, you definitely have a strong, commanding, charismatic voice. Like when you speak, I just stop and listen to you, and I haven't known you for 7 minutes and 19 seconds. So I could only imagine the people on your site when they get to know you and it becomes your site, how dedicated that site will be to you. That's awesome. Good to hear.
My mom
yeah.
was a third grade teacher, and I think some of that is just plain genetic.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah. And and I've seen, and I'm sure you guys have seen, young kids. Again, I'm not young. So younger young kids coming in. And one of the first things that I've noticed, no matter the gender, I mean, they're very they're like kind of off put about, working around 40, 50-year-old guys who are kind of very blue collar in how they speak. And it's like, oh, you gotta toughen up. You're not gonna, you're not gonna make it very far if, this guy, used some very colorful words and you have that shocked look on your face. But you're absolutely right. I mean, you gotta get in there. You gotta, be one of them, because they're not going to respect you unless they bring you into the club, so to speak. And that's, and then I've seen just the opposite. I've seen, little petite little girls, and they are as tough as nails, and they're right in there with them. And that's what they get. They get the respect, and
I have two 20-something nieces who are civil engineers just entering into the construction field. And those girls have sass. They have
Mhm.
sass, and that is going to serve them well. And,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I let them go. They are going to be the next generation. They're going to do it better than I did, for sure.
Yeah. No, exactly. And the one point that you brought up about the size of the PPE being a struggle, I honestly never saw that. I'm being educated right now. I mean, I don't have too many women on my team, but I never really thought about that. But that's incredible how, we as a industry haven't fixed
Well,
something as simple as that.
well,
Some
Dave,
yeah, go ahead.
no, I'm sorry, Patti. Go ahead.
When I got my first job at the Has Waste site, there was one option for steel-toed at that time safety boots. One, we've gotten better with that. I think the part of it is the numbers. So if you are in procurement and you are purchasing PPE for a workforce of 100 people and 80 of them are men who wear a 1X or larger Tyvek suit, or they're going to wear size 10 or larger gloves. The economics of it say that's who you're purchasing for. And unless somebody is saying, hey, listen, that woman is going to have to make a belt made out of duct tape to hold her Tyvek up, because otherwise, the crotch of the Tyvek hangs down to her knees and it becomes a safety issue.
Yeah.
You don't know. So, I always tell women, like, it's not a nicety to have PPE that fits you. The OSHA standard says that the employer is obligated to provide PPE that fits. Ask for it. That's you. Don't suffer in silence.
Right.
That is a very fundamental thing to have. Yeah.
Yeah. Dave, I was going to say that when we were working together, you don't remember all the glove issues we had with the the smaller ladies on our crew. These gloves don't fit. Their fingers, you could pinch it
even the
far.
small petite gloves would still have that gap between the actual glove and their finger.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's a hazard. It creates a hazard.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Well, so you got a science degree, and I'm guessing did you end up getting your master's, or did you just stop at the bachelor's, or what?
So I had a science degree, and I had intended to go to vet school until I got to organic chemistry, and that put the kibosh on that.
Animal lover.
So when I was working at that Superfund site, I also went back and took some graduate courses, and then in environmental health. And then my career just took off, and I worked for chemical waste management, which at the time really had a state-of-the-art internal training program. So I was learning industrial hygiene. I was getting really in-depth on-the-job training. And in the end, that was what I needed. And it's so I did have my CHMM for some period of time and sort of forgot about it, and it lapsed. But at that time I was so busy, it didn't matter.
Speaking of industrial hygiene, as we talked before, I come from my tools. I've been on power plants and refineries. What's your thought of the industrial hygiene class having a subcategory, personal hygiene, and learn how to take care of yourself? Because when you're stuck in a pipe rack with somebody that's 110 degrees and they haven't washed their FRs in a week, those are fighting words.
Yeah.
It's an evolution. Yeah. That was something you didn't talk about when I was a kid. I would have called HR. Back when I was in safety in corporate America, I would have been like, let me walk down the hall, knock on the door, and hope the HR person wants to take that one on because I got my hands full.
Years ago, I was on the pipeline, and we were working 7 days a week, and it was brutal. These guys, obviously, they're sweating and big burly guys, and it got to the point about the beginning of the second month, I went to the GC and I said, you guys, you have to give these guys a day off because they have to they have to wash their clothes and wash their bodies. And so, every morning we did our morning huddle, and it was in a small little trailer. Oh, doggy. I'm telling you what, you didn't need coffee. That woke you up every morning. And so after I talked to him, then he went in there and said, well, everybody can thank the medic because you're going to have Sunday off. So make sure you wash everything, clothes, body, everything. And I thought, oh, thank you. I mean, it was rough.
I'll tell you something, Dave, that to me, that is where a woman can sometimes be an advantage. I think that I probably in my career have had countless conversations that for me might have been a little uncomfortable, but I could deliver them with a little nudge and a sort of a wink and a smile and a laugh to a man that if you had that same conversation might have gotten you punched in the face. And
right.
Listen, I will take every advantage.
You smell like an onion. Yeah, pop. Right.
Listen, if you are expecting to meet any fine ladies here on the road, dude, like, can I give you a little tip, right? Like, are you dating anyone? Can I, here, like, let me help you out here. I'll be your wing woman. How about a shower? And
Uh,
these are some tips from a woman. I'm just saying
Old Spice isn't doing it anymore. You gotta actually wash it. Yeah.
could be delivered by me in a certain way that probably would be much harder for a man to deliver. Period.
And and that's a good question too. I mean, we talked about struggles for, women on construction sites. That would be a great advantage, obviously, like you just said. But what are some other advantages? You
Oh
know,
wow. A super fun site. Of course, you had to shower at the end of the day. Speaking of showers, and so of course there was a shower trailer for the guys, and there was a shower trailer for the women because there I was. I had my
mhm.
option of 6 showers. Like I could move from one to another. If one got a little dirty, I could move to the other one. So, and I'm teasing. Other advantages. I would say that there was almost always in any tough crowd, and in fact, I think the tougher the crowd, the better, because my next gig was with Teamster truck drivers, and that was also a tough crowd. A proportion of every one of those crews was a father of a daughter, and he was looking out for me in a way that I probably never knew. And I suspect that there were a lot of conversations that took place behind my back where somebody resolved something before I ever even saw it.
Mhm.
And they recognized that they wanted their daughter, if she was a smart woman doing a hard job, to be in a position where she could do it. And they looked out for me. There
Wow.
was, I mean, I could probably count on one hand the number of really truly sort of difficult, toxic people I've encountered in my career. And I'm happy to say that. I think people are people are people. And in the end, there's almost always something that can connect you to somebody, even if there's somebody you don't want to have a beer with after work, you can connect to them. And I think
Mhm.
I think for women, sometimes that connection is an easier thing to find.
Yeah.
I agree. And excuse me. I think a lot of that, though, with the years that I've been in the industry, to your point, I feel like I may have done that a couple of times, especially on the safety side. Not being on my tools, working with the crew, probably looked out for a couple, but when I got in safety, that's kind of more of your realm, anyways. But on the flip side of that, you said one time in your whole career you could probably count just on your hand. I think a lot of that has to do with their personality, the respect that they get from the crew too. Because if you're out there wanting a man to do everything for you, but you're out there outworking them, I think they see that. They see you in a different light, and they're like, "She's not going to fuck around. I want to take care of her. She's a great crew. Let's go out there
Mhm.
and treat her right."
I think I was predestined to do better in a male dominated environment than I would have done in a female dominated environment. I mean,
Because your upbringing, right?
there's a reason I don't own a flower shop. You know what I mean? Like this, you know what I mean? Or a hair salon. It's men are sort of my people, and I think that is perfectly okay.
Yeah.
But I also think that's the same thing that allows me to work well with men. For most women, that where I'm a straight shooter. Let's talk
Yeah.
about it. I want to know what you need. That's a human thing. Everybody wants to
Right.
be heard. That's not
Right.
a female or a male thing. Period.
Right. Right.
So you don't like flowers? What's your Valentine's Day look like?
My ex-husband's mom had a flower shop.
Oh, come
Oh.
on!
Oh.
This is just too perfect
Got her
here.
all the time, right? You
Uh,
can't make this up.
Yeah.
Too
Oh
bad
my
we're on a.
gosh.
If we weren't on a timeline, I got so many follow up questions after that one. So yeah, trying to stay on topic. So you've done tremendous things in this industry. You've had a degree. A couple of questions I want to. Your very first site was a 43-person site back in the 90s, and then the last 25 years, if you've soared, what's your biggest site that you've either ran, trained, taught? Where did it go from 43 to how many people?
Okay, so after I left the hazardous waste business, and I'd kind of moved my way up in that business, and sort of I wanted to get off the road and back into a facility. So I took a job in a manufacturing facility, and we had 750 employees, 24-hour a day operation, 4 rotating shifts, 12-hour shifts. And when I started that job, we routinely had fires because we worked with solvent-based coatings. This will also age me. We made polyester. We made color print ribbons for laser jet printers. Think about
Oh,
that.
wow.
Yeah, like you don't see
Wow.
those anymore.
Yeah.
Yes, you can
Mhm.
find one on eBay for about 29 cents. So, but you can't buy cartridges. And so we worked with solvent-based inks and routinely had fires because there was absolutely no grounding and bonding program at all. So we started from scratch with that. We also had no lockout tag out program. So at the other end of the operation, I had operators sort of routinely when I came on board getting caught in machines, like
Oh
literally getting
my
caught in
gosh.
machines. So I
Wow.
want you to ask yourself, so you're a safety professional, you get thrown into this gig and you're having fires at one end of the facility and people getting caught in machines at the other. And there was a lot of times that I lost a lot of sleep. And I can remember getting a phone call at 4 a.m. Somebody gotten caught in a machine, and it was a day after we'd had a fire. So I had just gotten back to bed,
My gosh.
after a meeting with the fire marshal, and I lived an hour from the plant. And my dad's a safety guy too, turned out. And I remember calling my dad at 5 a.m. and saying, Dad, a guy just got caught in a machine at work. And what do I do? And he said, make a pot of coffee, put your clothes on, and go do your job.
That's
And
great advice. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
straight up, this is what you are,
that's
do
my
it.
dad. That's my dad. And I did.
Wow.
And by the end, we had an established lockout tag up program. And one of the weird things I did with that one, we had all hands meetings. So, the entire 100, 200 people from each shift would be out on the floor and hearing from somebody. And so I took one of the guys who had gotten caught in a machine and ended up getting hooked. This is in the early 90s. He got hooked on pain meds. And I interviewed him, just quick video, him talking about the injury. He didn't show anything. There was nothing gory about it. But then he talked about how it affected his family, going on comp, the pay cut, getting hooked on these meds, having difficulty coming back to work, the pain. And people just had to get up and leave. It was so
Wow.
powerful. And all it was asking this guy if he'd be willing to, his name was Ralph. And would he talk about what happened to him that day and the aftermath of it? And people came to me, hey, listen, I lost my lock. Hey, I want to talk to you about this. Suddenly
Nice.
the program sort of took off, and it was because a human being related to them as a human being. And it didn't have anything to do with me at all. It was just me putting their peer in front of them in a way that it reflected them. Totally accidental, and it worked out in that
Wow.
case really well. It was a
Yeah.
tough time.
Wow.
Sometimes
Gosh.
that's what it takes to stick to. And when you and I spoke, that's part of the psychology of human behavior that I like to get into. Why does that, like, you got your 30-year-old veterans that I ain't doing this, I'm not changing nothing, and then you got your 30-year-old veterans, and they're okay, yeah, that makes sense, and then they'll tell you about a story from a site. One of my coworkers ended up being hurt like this, and the other one will say the same thing and still just doesn't get through that it's ever going to happen to them.
Right.
So that interests me a lot, the psychology side of this job.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Whenever I do training with supervisors or people who are going to be in a safety leadership position, one of the messages I always hammer home is every single one of those people, they all have different levels of risk tolerance. Just as human beings, we all have different levels of risk tolerance. And we all have totally different things that motivate us.
Yep.
So for one guy, it might be coming home to his kids. For somebody else, it might be money and fear of losing his job. For somebody else, it might be, it's just your job. Your challenge is to find your way in for every single one of those people. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do. You
Yeah.
got to find a way that works for this one because it ain't going to work for that one. That's your gig. That is your entire gig.
Well, Corey, you and I have, actually, I think I might have got this from you, but whenever, and even now, whenever I do orientations,
You probably did. If it's anything good in your career, I helped you.
Oh man, I can't. Can I go back in time about 10 seconds right now? No. But no, I mean,
You can edit that out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We'll edit
Yeah,
it
no,
out.
this is going to be all uncut and raw. So
but during the orientation, I talked to the new employees and stuff and say all the regulations from OSHA was written in blood. Somebody got hurt, somebody died, they came up with it. And I sometimes I'll even bring in one of my books and how thick it is, so and hopefully that would get them to think, well, wow, that's a lot. Well, yeah, there are people out there that got really hurt or even lost their lives, and that's why we have these safety policies, because of that. Like you said, not having lockout tag out, and all these guys getting hurt. Unfortunately, you had to go through a lot of guys getting hurt before it finally, hey, this is definitely, we need this, and
Yeah.
fires. I had family members that worked in steel mills up in Chicago, and Thanksgiving, I mean, a normal Thanksgiving in my family was they would brag to each other how many times they got caught on fire. And it's like, and that, tell you what, that taught me, I do not want to work there.
Yeah.
I do not want to be caught on fire.
Yeah, to your point about the standards, written in blood, it would be nice if we just had somebody like OSHA had a Wizard of Oz canopy and a crystal ball. They're just, oh, this is going to come up in this job. And then boom, they could just, make the standard out and we could learn about it and not have to be reactive.
Right.
If only the legislative process worked that way, but we know that it's a flawed process. And in the end,
yes,
I always tell people, listen, it's about risk, we got to dot the I's, we got to cross the T's, we got to make sure we're doing all the right things by law, down to the standard. But in the end, to me, it's all about your safety. In the end, it's about risk.
Yeah. This is I could talk to you forever. You're just so captivating. I love it.
Yeah.
But let's talk more about you. I know we've derailed a few times and had stories of our past.
Let's focus back on you. Yeah.
Well, Patti, this fascinating. Okay.
This is all you, Patti. This is about you. So, coming in, safety wasn't your gig. You wanted to be a vet. You started off as a science degree. Obviously, you had a love of animals, and then it just took off for you. Tell us about what you've done with your companies, your safety consulting company. Is it just you, or do you have employees now? And your eLearning company?
And how you
said,
got
I think you, you started that about 5 years ago. How did you come up with the idea? I'm just going to do some online trainings, and now in the last 5 years, I think you said it's starting to blow up. So
yeah, that's another funny story. So that same company where we resolved the fire situation, I finally worked for that company long enough that I was exhaling. We didn't have fires anymore. People didn't get caught in machines. So as a safety person, right, like you're thinking to yourself, like, I've established this program. I have bled into this program. Now there will be you know what I mean? Like the wheels are on the bus. And then they got acquired by an international company, and I was part of a mass layoff. And oh boy, was I angry. Like, I don't know that I've ever been so angry in my life. And I called my dad. I mean, my dad is like a recurring theme here. I called my dad on my company-owned cell phone, which that was a big deal to have a company-owned cell phone at the time. I called him and he said, Patti, he said, I think it is time for you to become a gentlewoman farmer and an overpaid consultant. And my husband,
your father is very wise.
You have no idea. My husband at the time had his own business. And I'm just going to say this. He encouraged me to start my own business. And I thought, well, I knew him well enough to know the level. I'm like, if he can do this, I can do this. So I did. And it was funny. So talk about, so I had worked in the interim. I had worked for a consulting company. I had gone out on the road and Eastman Coat, like I had big clients and I was on the road a lot, and I'd worked for this consulting company. So I sort of understood the gig of being a paid trainer. And when I hung out my shingle, I reached out to my former clients. I had no non-compete. I had nothing. And the thing that was remarkable to me about that, when you talk about women, a good percentage of those former clients were women. And almost every single woman hired me to work for them. So
Wow.
there, the sisterhood, I have to say the sisterhood showed up, there, because I'm a big believer that if you get an opportunity, your job is to grab somebody else and pull them along with you. So
Hmm.
the training business took off. I don't sell, I don't market. I just kept the clients I had and treated them. I did what I said I was going to do when I said I was going to do it, and I made sure I over delivered. And so the business just grew. I didn't have to do anything else. And so that was 25 years of having that business. That was proactive. I started that in 1999. And in 2014, 15, some of my clients started talking about computer-based training or e-learning or web-based training, or we're starting to move to some modules. So I started to look at what was out there. To say I was underwhelmed would have been a massive understatement. It was so bad. Some of it was wrong. Like, it hit me in the safety geek soft parts where if you can't actually get the definition of a confined space correct, on what planet are you selling this to
Oh
people
God.
as, you know what I mean? Like, it burned me. And my first response is, this is awful. I'm never doing it. It's wrong. Training should be, I'm looking you in the eye in a room so they can ask questions. This is just wrong.
Hmm.
And then I could feel it was taking off. And I had nieces who were on devices all the time, and I could smell the direction. I was like, this bus is driving. You are either getting on this bus or you're going to be left behind.
Right.
And so I started an e-learning business. And
Wow.
the whole intention was exactly the same as it was for my live training. If it's not customized and specific to those learners, it's no good. If it is not interactive and touching base with the learners to make sure they got the stuff that's important to them in their very specific job, it's no good. And we only partnered with clients who were willing to invest that time and energy to get it right. And that was 2016. And so that business has been taking off. I think there's two things that surprise people about me owning an e-learning business. One, totally tech inept. I am not a techie person at all, but I am also smart enough to surround myself with people who are way smarter than me. I always say it's the same
Hmm.
thing with safety consultants. I sometimes get really crushed by how awful safety professionals are to other safety professionals in being quick to put one another down, or, yeah, you have that right, but I'm more right than you are.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
so unattractive. And it just rubs me the wrong way. So I always like to be, I think you are really brilliant if all the other people in the room are smarter than you. Like, I
Correct.
like being the dumb one in the room, being surrounded by smart people. It makes life so much easier.
Oh yeah.
And that's what I've done. Like, I've surrounded myself with tech people and who get it. And so that's the first surprise, that I'm not techie at all. And the other thing is, I'm not a big believer in e-learning. I think that e-learning is for very specific circumstances and very clear audiences where you are achieving a goal that is achievable with e-learning.
Hmm.
I will never I will never build a 30-hour construction course. I would not be interested in that, because I think that is just cruel,
Yeah.
inhumane. Confined space entry, no way. Lockout tag out beyond an affected course, not for me. So the niche we've found with that business has been, because there are so many obligations as a host facility or a construction management company or a general contractor, construction safety orientations, because
Hmm.
there are so many boxes to check. There is so much burden to electronically prove that that contractor not only received that information, but they understood it adequately to make the right scenario-based risk assessment decision in a moment, that it is worth the squeeze for my clients to invest in it.
Hmm.
Do,
So that's the business that's taken off.
do you mind sharing with our listeners what your e-learning website is so that they can all get on board and maybe get a
Definitely.
few
Oh
more
yeah.
clients?
Yeah.
So it is P as in Patti, C as in compliance, go with, S as in safety, customtraining.com. So it's pcscustomtraining.com. And I invite people to go there, look around, see, I've got a blog. I do some writing. We've got some little e-learning courses in there that we built to sort of describe how we do our process. There's sample courses in there, snippets and stuff like that. So people can get a flavor for what e-learning, in my opinion, can be. And I work with some really talented people who do beautiful stuff. And
Wow.
they make me proud.
Excellent. And I guess we really didn't solidify it, but for our listeners, if they come in and do some kind of code like SOS standards or safety or something, you're going to possibly talk about little percentage off for them or something like that.
Listen, if you mention Corey and Dave or SOS, like there's some, listen, I own the business. There'll be an SOS discount. Talk to
You'll
me.
get a pen with your name on it.
I just saw a client yesterday from.
You get a cozy.
I just saw a client from a very big client. So let's just say do either of you have dogs or cats?
Oh
yes.
Animals. Okay.
All the above.
One of my clients, you probably purchase products from them. So anyhow, I do this construction safety orientation for a whole bunch of their facilities, all their capital projects and stuff. But this guy's the original. He's the OG. And we have to refresh his course. And he said to me, he's like, listen, I was the first, right? Like, do I get the OG discount? I'm like, dude, you already get the OG discount. Like,
OG discount.
Get the OG discount. Yes, you certainly are.
Oh my
He's
gosh.
a totally difficult guy to pin down. Like he's a super busy safety guy. And I said, but I'm only in town until Monday, and we have to meet Monday and talk about it and get it worked out, or the OG discount is gone.
Oh wow.
So that's the good news about being a small business. You can negotiate. But I'm also a woman-owned business. Like I am a pending federal-owned, woman-owned business in New York State. I'm a WBE. Like, so if that's important to a client, I've got that.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Speaking of what you are, got a little question for you here.
Okay.
If you could, yeah. So
Shot
if you
fire.
could be,
You got 5 seconds for 10 questions. Go.
If you could be a safety hero, what would you be and why?
Oh my gosh.
God,
Just
okay,
add to the list of things that you already are. Let's go ahead and just throw a safety hero in there.
I think I'm obligated as someone with 2 X chromosomes. I think I'm obligated to say I would want to be Wonder Woman because the lasso of truth. But if I think about that a little,
great.
I mean, right?
that.
If you could lasso that iron worker and get him to actually tell you what he was doing up there, walking like it, if you could actually get a straight answer out of him with the lasso of truth, wouldn't that make your job easier?
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely. You would need to trademark that. That's a hard hat sticker too, by the way. Lasso of truth.
Yeah. Oh, lasso
I like
of
that.
truth.
Lasso of truth. Yeah, I'd say that have to be it.
That's awesome.
Wow.
So Patti, Wonder Woman, e-learning guru and safety consultant extraordinaire.
Not supposed
right?
to laugh, am I? Okay, got it.
Patti, you're going to have to put that on a card, on your business card. All Wonder Woman, lasso of truth, all the way down.
Here's what I consider myself when it comes to that. I am no guru. I'm none of those things. What I am somebody who can bridge a safety professional who wants to do it right, because that is me. I am that person.
Mm-hmm.
To how hard it is to get from that ambitious goal to actually making it happen. Like, to me, that's it. I am the conduit. I am super curious to figure out how to make it work for you. And then I can work with all my smart tech people to make it happen. That's it. That's all I am.
Wow.
Well,
Now that's
I love it. Patti, we're coming up. I could talk to you all day. I mean, with your charisma and everything else that you got. So to our listeners out there, listen to this podcast, reach out to her. She's got a great training program. She does her own consulting company. She's got a lot of high-end clients. So obviously she knows what she's doing and helping turning around your program. Reach out to her, get her help. But we've absolutely enjoyed this episode with you, and I'm glad you said yes to it, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. With so much more to talk about, maybe we could do a part 2, talk about some of your training and
Yeah.
your knowledge in confined spaces, your knowledge
Oh
in
yeah.
a particular niche, and just let you pretty much take control of the show at that point with
Let's
as the professor.
let's geek out. Like, to me, there
I
is
love
nothing
it.
more fun than confined space because it's a really complicated jigsaw puzzle. And how do we make it simpler?
Yeah.
Like, to me, would love that. That would be a lot of fun.
Oh,
Well,
awesome.
we'll put it on the date. You heard it here first. Our next episode with Miss Patti is confined spaces, the Tetris jigsaw puzzle or whatever. Maybe we'll turn it
Tetris.
into a yeah.
Safety people all over the country holding their breath,
That's
waiting
right.
for that episode. I can hear their hands shaking with excitement.
I'm
The emails are going to start coming in, the phone calls. It's like, okay, you guys are doing okay, but when's Patti coming back?
Yeah. We don't like Dave and Corey. When's Patti? We
That's
want
right.
Patti.
That's right.
So
That is
well,
very funny.
Dave, you got anything for Miss Patti here
Uh,
before we sign off?
Just real quick, what advice would you give anyone that's, either getting out of school, wanting to become safety, uh, a young person, next generation type? What kind of advice would you give them?
That's a really good question. I think that if I could do it all over again and I knew then what I know now, I think I would have told myself to be far more interested, far less interested in proving to anybody I knew anything, and far more curious about what they knew. I think it was only 15, 20 years into my career where I really got comfortable enough in my own skin that I knew what I knew and felt good about that, that I was open to saying, I have no freaking idea. Let me call someone who does know without having a little tremor in my voice or feeling bad about not knowing something. The more curious you are, and one of the things I most frequently say to my clients, treat me like a fourth grader and tell me how this works. If you had to explain this to a fourth grader, break it down for me and help me understand. And if they do that, I've got like so much more understanding. And if you take the ego aside and you take the need to be the safety professional and the expert out of the equation, you just get super duper curious about solving a problem, you're going to do way better in this profession because people want to be heard. They will trust you if you're curious. They are, people are far more trusting of somebody who comes in and says, tell me more because I want to understand, than somebody who comes in and says, I've got the regulations. Look at me. I've got all the standards. I know more about this than anybody else. Let me tell you how it's going to be. It doesn't work. It doesn't work on any level. So I would say if you're a young safety professional, you're just getting out of school and you've never had your boots on the ground, get your boots on the ground, get really, really dirty and start talking to the guys who do the work and ask them about what they do. Find out how it works and what happens and ask them, what's the most dangerous thing you do? What do you worry about? Getting curious. I would say getting curious is absolutely key.
Excellent,
That's awesome.
excellent
Yeah.
advice. Love it. Love it. Couldn't have said it better myself.
We know.
Well, listen, this has been super duper fun, and I am in Buffalo. I live in South Carolina now. I'm in Buffalo now for the weekend. I've got all my people to see and chicken wings to eat and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
this has been super duper fun. Happy to do it again. Thank you so much for having good questions and patiently answering or letting me,
No,
jab.
all the thank you goes to you for doing it and
Yeah.
accepting it. We had just an excellent time as well. So
Yeah, this has been great. And again, thank you for taking time out. You said your people are there, and I understand that. So just give us, a few minutes or so with your time. I really appreciate it.
listen, this has been a blast. I would do that. I would do this every Saturday morning if you wanted to. So I
Oh
am
wow.
thrilled to do it. And you guys take good care, and thank you for the hospitality. And I'm looking forward to listening and seeing, how it sounds in the on the flip side.
Excellent.
Well, thanks a lot, Patti. You take care of yourself and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Bye.